guys, how are we doing today? And welcome to Wonder Revs and our first rendition of our Whiskey Wednesday, where we talk automotive, anything automotive speaking, and sip different kinds of whiskey. Today we have Scotch. Today we also have special guest Kyle Palin.
How y'all doing? I'm sure y'all recognize from my channel, hopefully. Hi, Mom. So, what we're going to be talking about today is two different entry-level vehicles to a young enthusiast or an enthusiast who really isn't financially capable of doing some of the higher-end vehicles, higher-end mods that we used to see on YouTube. So I'm going to let Kevin kick it off with...
What we're going to do is we're going to go over the pros, the cons, and a mod list that you would do on your budget build, depending on what you want to do with it. Kyle, what's your vehicle? Give me some pros, some cons, and a mod list.
So the vehicle that I would pick as a great entry-level vehicle would be the Mazda Miata. This is a car that has, for some reason, come under a lot of scrutiny, and I can understand why. At the face of it, it is an underpowered, really it's just an underpowered car. And somebody who's just getting into the market, like I know me personally, if you had told me 10 years ago, Kyle, you're going to own a Miata at some point in time, I would have laughed and probably slapped you. But after doing my research, after learning about them, I learned that it really is a viable platform for somebody getting into the field, or into car culture in general.
Absolutely. It is a hairdresser's car, but at the end of the day, it's a great car.
Quoting Mad Mike.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's the Miata would be my top choice for an entry-level vehicle.
Okay. What would you say some pros for that vehicle would be?
One of the first pro that I could think of would be pure price point. Most individuals getting into this field, you know, when we start our car adventure, we don't have thousands of dollars to go spending on cars and modifications. So if you were to look at any Miata, and I mean anything from NA to NB, and even the NCs, you can find them at a relatively low price point. You can pick up pre-93 NAs that had the 1.6 liter for around $1,000. You can even find NBs or later NAs with the 1.8, the BP4W. You can find those around the $2,000 to $3,000 range. They're going to be a little bit rough, don't get me wrong, but it's nothing that, you know, a little elbow grease and some time you can't adjust.
Well, that's the beauty of a budget build is, you know, you got to put your own TLC into it to, you know, shine it up a little, make it your own.
Absolutely.
What would be a con for the Mazda Miata?
Well, a con, in my opinion, you know, I think I might have already hit it on the head, is it is underpowered. So if you're getting into this and you're expecting to have a rocket right out the bat, I wouldn't recommend it. Or if you don't plan on doing any modifications in general, you're going to be underwhelmed. You will get bored of the car, unfortunately. But we're looking at this as an aspect of somebody coming into car culture, wanting to modify their car and do events with their car.
Absolutely. And speaking of doing events, what kind of events would you use the Mazda Miata for? And what would be a mod list that you would use in those events?
So one thing that I would do, again speaking of personal experience, is running SCCA autocross. That is really where, again, coming back to a pro here, that is where the Miata shines. It's lightweight, perfect 50-50 weight distribution, it's nimble, it has enough power to get you through the very tight technical courses that you're going to come across in an autocross event. So there, you're really going to be able to pull legs and heads around guys who are out there running, you know, Corvettes. I've even seen a few with Lamborghini. They got smoked with a Miata. And really, there's not much on an autocross course that a Miata can't handle.
Absolutely, I agree completely. And what would you put on your Miata?
The first thing that I would adjust on any Miata will really be the suspension. Where it's awesome right at the bat, it is a little bit soft for my liking, so I experience a lot of body roll. But again, another really awesome pro to this car is the price point of the mods. I was able to pick up Bilstein and HR Springs secondhand suspension for around $300. It was still in awesome shape, put it right under the car, and it completely changed the way the car handled and behaved.
Fantastic. Any other bolt-ons that you would like to see?
I would highly recommend, if nothing else, at least doing the complete bolt-on. So by that I mean perhaps a larger radiator, cool a little bit better. I mean, take everybody's first step, your cold air intake or ram air intake. Make it help breathe a little bit better. Do the full exhaust. And again, you can get all of this done with a $3,000 car and end up maybe spending only about $5 grand.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, and before it slips my mind, make sure you get yourself either a roll bar or a full roll cage, because I hate to break it to you, they're not the safest cars.
Being a drop top with no factory roll bar, I would agree.
Absolutely. So that, again, to bring it all back in full circle, my prime choice for a beginner's entry level car would be the Mazda Miata. It's got bang for buck. It's got the aftermarket supports there. Just do not get into this car expecting to have a rocket. It doesn't exist.
And don't be afraid to laugh at yourself every once in a while. Remember, you're still driving a hairdresser's car.
Absolutely. I made fun of myself almost constantly. It was fun though, but it was cool because, you know, there, believe it or not, almost like I'm sure you know there are a couple Jeep Wrangler fans out there, Miata fans tend to stick together.
Absolutely.
It's one giant family. So, Kevin, with that, what would be your choice for an entry-level vehicle?
My choice for an entry-level budget build would honestly be an Acura Integra, specifically a DC2 model. My reason for that is it is along the same lines as your Mazda Miata. They're very cheap to acquire. They're everywhere. You can typically get your hands on, you know, an Integra LS or a GSR between $3,000 and $4,000 in great shape. One of the biggest pros for the car, I would say, is, again, it's very cheap to acquire, and there is insane aftermarket support for the car. And when I say insane, because that is a very modular build that Honda made, you can get Civic parts, you can get Prelude parts, and even newer Integra parts, and put them on that vehicle to upgrade it, and in a very subtle way.
Absolutely.
One of the biggest cons of having the car, honestly, is you come with the Honda stigma. You know, you often be underrated, and you know, it kind of goes back to the Miata with being a hairdresser. You know, you have a hairdresser's vehicle, you drive a Honda now. You know, you have a very underdog, underwhelmed car in most people's eyes, but anybody in the know would know that that car could be very serious or not. It just depends on who's behind the wheel.
That is one unfortunate stigma I've noticed with the Integra is, unfortunately, when, and again, not really unfortunately, everybody's got to start somewhere. The cars do tend to get, and please forgive me for saying this, they tend to get riced out every now and then.
Very commonly, especially with Hondas, and I think that's where most of the stigma came from, is you get a lot of these guys that buy a Honda for $1,200 and slap a $500 eBay full system on there, and they act like it's got 500 horse, and you know, they're flooring it off of every light, and realistically speaking, now you're getting laughed at and everybody gets brought down with you. But if you keep a nice clean build, you're all set.
Don't forget the cut springs and the steelies.
Oh, cut springs and steelies, it's my favorite.
So you covered a couple of the cons. What would you say would be a pro to picking up an Integra for somebody who wouldn't know?
Very easy to build power. With simple bolt-ons and a flash tune, which they even offer those online now at a very affordable price. I mean, you can easily push over 200 horse at the wheels on one of those vehicles, which, mind you, in a light front-wheel drive format like that, feels like a rocket. You can easily put probably about $3,000 in the car and be completely satisfied with it. So if you count in the price of the initial purchase of the car plus your mods, you're looking between $5,000 and $6,000 on it. And realistically speaking, $5,000 and $6,000 for a car that you can go out and drive daily. You know, you can go on long road trips with, or you can take it to the track and drive it to and from the track. That's a pretty good deal with me.
Now, what are some events that you would recommend getting involved with if you were to pick one of these up?
Honestly, the Integra does well with SEC at autocross. And the reason it does well is the Integra, although it is a front-wheel drive car and they're known to push through corners, the Integra is actually an exception to that rule in that you can cite it online all over the place. All these other magazines have raved about it being one of the best handling front-wheel drive cars to date. You don't really have to do too much to the suspension aside from stiffen it up, and you can use the factory sway bars, factory shocks, and just use some simple like 500 spring rate front and rear lowering springs on adjustment collars, and your suspension setup is solid. already from the back because you've eliminated the body roll.
Now, for someone who doesn't have much experience with Hondas in general, what would you say a solid price point for some of these mods are going to come to? I realize it can vary greatly from eBay to Skunk 2, but with that being said, what would you anticipate?
Like you're saying, you can go from mild to wild realistically, but if you're going to keep the factory motor in there, you're only looking to see between 2 and 250 horsepower out of it, which is admirable. That's around $3,000 that you can easily make 250 wheel horse with in that vehicle and have no issues battling out with your friends on the streets. One of the first mods I would honestly do is say to take that exhaust manifold off. It restricts you so much. And I actually got one of the cheaper headers for that car because I used it in NA, and it produced a ton of power. You can get a high-tech replica. You don't even have to get the real one. The replica produces crazy power numbers from it just because it's equal length. The way that they bent the tubes and everything is perfect. Then, just go with your slew of bolt-on mods, your intakes, run the rest of your exhaust down, high-flow cat, the whole 9 yards. And, if you just wanted to make a very peppy car, just change the cams and move your power around, and you're in there. So, now that we've covered pros and cons, and, a short mod example, let's go into the street scene. What are some examples that you've seen the Mazda Miata in a light that you respect?
Really, it's far and few between that I haven't seen a Miata that I didn't have at least a small semblance of respect for. For example, I've seen examples of these cars at SCCA events, and we were talking full aero package, slammed to its nuts, cherry bomb exhaust, ready to go, and it was still somewhat respectable. And maybe even seen it to the entirely other end of that spectrum with show bills, like out of Tune Revolution, for example. When we were out there, I definitely saw quite a few examples of very clean Miatas.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild to me how you can take such a bland car from bone stock and they've only put a few $1,000s into pure cosmetics, and the car is very good to look at.
Absolutely, absolutely. And even just out in the streets around here in Daytona, out in Orlando, I've seen plenty of Miatas, and ranging from NAs to NCs. I've even seen a couple NDs with some very heavy modifications done to them, some of the newer ones. And obviously the ND is going to be out of the price point, well, even for us. But it just goes to show, no matter what generation of this platform you decided to look at, there's really not much you can't do. I've even heard rumor that Rocket Bunny is working on something for the ND.
Yeah, they're doing some really groundbreaking things, especially with a platform as old as that one is.
Absolutely.
I mean, realistically speaking, they never really designed it to be what it is now, and it takes nothing to bring it there.
Well, that's the cool thing with the Miata, is it pulled everything from like base sport car roots. I mean, if you look back in the day at some of the Triumph with the TR6, the midgets, things like that, it followed a simple platform: small engine, light body, drop the top, rear-wheel drive. It was a perfect car.
What I really respect about that car is the forward thinking that they used on it. You normally see a lateral brace where for the rear end and the drive shaft on a heavily built high horsepower car. But the NDs have them.
Absolutely.
And that just shows forward thinking and excellent ingenuity in Japan. I mean,
Absolutely.
They really hit it out of the park on that.
Absolutely. And the other awesome thing, I can't speak to the MZR, the 2-liter, but I can speak to the 1.6 and the 1.8. It's like Legos to take apart.
Oh, absolutely. Very easy, very simple. Even your simple maintenance is screw and tap it.
Absolutely.
How much easier does that really get?
My only problem with maintenance on that car was oil changes, simply because they decided to put the oil filter right behind the alternator.
Yeah.
Underneath the manifold. Not the best place.
Yeah, but if you really look back at it, most of the cars built in that era were like that. I mean, even the Integra was like that. You have to reach around and under the intake manifold through a very small gap between your shock tower and the manifold to get to your oil filter. So, I mean, I feel your pain.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, where have you seen a few examples of Integras that really caught your eye?
You know, and that's actually a really good question because most of the time on the streets, I only see them parked looking great. Most of the ones I see cruising around for the most part don't really catch my eye very much. You know, there's something terribly wrong with them, or they're riced out. Because everybody, you know, takes care of them. They're garage kept, anything like that. They don't really just beat around on them too much. But you know, even out going back to Tuner Evolution, I saw tons of mint Integra Type Rs, like tons of them, and you know that just goes to show that you know the following is there. The brotherhood is still there. It's just a matter of, do you want to join that brotherhood or do you want to join a different one?
And to that, as far as the brotherhood is concerned, anybody looking to get into this scene, you know, whether you're looking into an Integra, whether you're looking into a Miata, you are going to end up entering a family of sorts.
Yeah! Absolutely.
Regardless. So,
I mean, take it realistically. You know, if you drive a Miata and you see another Miata down the road, you're probably going to see them waving at you. If you drive a nice Honda and you know another nice Honda drives by, they're probably going to wave back at you.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like the car wave.
Absolutely.
And the nice part about that is, you know, if you go out to any of the nicer car meets, anything like that, there's a good melding of minds, and you can really source some really nice vehicles out there.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, it's been blast. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and hit the alarm bell for your notifications. This has been our first iteration of Whiskey Wednesday, and I would like to see your comments. What would you like us to discuss on our next Whiskey Wednesday?
Absolutely. Give us an excuse to drink.
I'll drink to that.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Damn good stuff.
Welcome. Oh, fuck me. I forgot the name of my own channel now after you forgot it.
That's B-roll. Welcome to fuck.
Fuck me. Alright.